Now, we all think of car recalls as something that affects a few thousand people, maybe as many as 100,000 people, right? Wrong. Car recalls tend to be not just in the millions, but in some cases, tens of millions. So sit back, hold your keys for good luck, and listen while I go over the 5 biggest car recalls ever on today's episode of 5 Weird Things. Welcome to the channel. First, like, subscribe, share the channel. Now, my only experience with a recall was the 1994 Subaru Justy that I owned years ago that had a recall for the little pins that held the brake pads on. Car ran fine, brakes never failed. I took it to the dealership, they fixed it. That is the closest I came to something almost being wrong with my car. Could have been a hell of a lot worse. Now, what is your recall story? I know you've got a better one than I do. Let me know down in the comments. All right, let's get into it. First, the things we all need to know. An automotive recall is the car industry's polite way of saying, oops, we might have built your vehicle with a tiny flaw that could kill you. It happens when a manufacturer or the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the NHTSA, discovers that something important like brakes, airbags, or, the engine doesn't work quite as it should. Sometimes recalls come from internal testing. Other times it's from customers wondering why their car smells like fire. If enough complaints stack up, the NHTSA steps in with the government version of fix it or else. Once a recall is official, manufacturers must notify owners, usually via a small snail mail that you'll ignore, and offer a free fix, replacement, or a refund. It sounds generous until you remember it's to prevent spontaneous combustion and or death. So in short, a recall is like a manufacturer saying, hey, remember that expensive car we sold you? Could you bring it back real quick? Everybody got that? Good. Weird thing number 5, the Chrysler fuel tank recall of 2013, or as it could have been called, Jeep, built to explode. This recall centered on certain Jeep Grand Cherokee and Liberty models with a fun little quirk. The fuel tank was mounted behind the rear axle, which was right in the car's crumple zone, which meant a rear-end collision. Instead of just damage, you got a potential gasoline-fueled fireball. Cool, right? Now, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration was not impressed, and they claimed that the design flaw contributed to at least 75 deaths. Chrysler initially refused to issue a recall, basically saying, it's okay. After some not-so-gentle nudging from the government and lots of public side-eye, Chrysler finally gave in. Vehicles affected? About 2.7 million Jeep SUVs. The fix? Install a tow hitch. Not to actually tow things, but to act as a bumper shield for the gas tank. Because nothing screams confidence like bolting on an afterthought. Cost? Around $300 million. Plus a whole bunch of reputation damage and uncomfortable congressional hearings. In the end, Chrysler learned that putting a fuel tank in the car's danger zone is a great way to make headlines, just not the good times. Weird thing number 4, Toyota unintended acceleration recall, 2009 to 2010. The recall that made every Prius feel like a runaway roller coaster. The problem? Some Toyota and Lexus vehicles had this charming habit of accelerating on their own, whether or not the driver had acted nicely with that pedal thing. Initially, Toyota blamed floor mats for trapping the gas pedal. Then they blamed the pedal design. Then electronics got a little bit of side-eye. At one point, it seemed like the cars just had a mind of their own, and that mind was yelling, giddy up. Over 10 million vehicles were recalled globally, making it one of the largest automotive recalls ever. Drivers reported speeding up uncontrollably, sometimes leading to accidents, injuries, and tragically, to death. Let's just say cruise control was not the issue here. The solution? Toyota redesigned the accelerator pedals, installed brake override systems, and trimmed down or replaced the floor mats. Basically everything they thought was wrong. Meanwhile, they issued several press conferences that basically said, that's our bad. The final bill? Around $5 billion, including repairs, lawsuits, fines, and the kind of brand damage that makes PR people cry in the break room. In the end, Toyota learned the hard way. Your car should move when the driver says so, not when they feel like it. Weird thing number 3, the Ford Cruise Control fire recall. Because who doesn't love the idea of their car catching fire while they're not even driving it? From 1999 to 2009, good solid decade, Ford managed to recall over 14 million vehicles due to a rather fiery little issue. The problem? The cruise control deactivation switch was prone to overheating, and in some cases could ignite a fire, even if the car was just sitting in your driveway minding its own business. The faulty switch was located near the brake fluid reservoir, so when it malfunctioned, it created the perfect storm for spontaneous combustion. Because that's what everybody wants in a car sitting in their driveway, a flame-throwing dashboard while you're watching Netflix inside the house. Ford's solution was simple: replace the faulty switch. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but considering the huge number of cars involved, it took years to get through them all. The total cost of the recall was estimated at around $600 million, pocket change. In the end, Ford learned that a little fire in your car is fine, as long as you don't have to call it a recall. Weird thing number 2, the GM ignition switch recall of 2014. This was a classic case of what could possibly go wrong, and the spoiler, a lot. It turns out millions of GM vehicles came equipped with ignition switches that were a little too chill, as in they could randomly turn off while you were driving. Just kill the engine, shut down the power steering, the power brakes, and wait for it, the airbags. Nothing like a surprise shutdown on the freeway to keep life a little exciting. The issue affected about 30 million cars worldwide, including popular models like the Chevy Cobalt and Saturn Ion. The faulty switches were so sensitive that even a heavy keychain could trigger the problem. That's right, your cute keychain collection was basically a ticking time bomb. GM eventually admitted they'd known about the defect for over a decade before issuing the recall, because apparently safety takes a backseat to paperwork and, what's that other word, money. Now the fix? A new ignition switch. The cost? Over $4.1 billion in repairs, settlements, and fines. Not to mention a PR nightmare and 124 confirmed deaths linked to the defect. In the end, GM got a very expensive lesson why you don't hide the issue and just step up and fix the damn car. And finally, weird thing number 1, the Takata airbag recall. This was the gold medalist of automotive oopsies. From 2000 to 2020, 2 decades, more than 67 million vehicles in the US and over 100 million worldwide were recalled because the Takata airbags had a nasty little habit, exploding with enough force to send metal shrapnel into the cabin. The one place you're supposed to be safe during a crash? The problem, Takata used ammonium nitrate, a super volatile compound, as a propellant in the airbag inflators. Over time, especially in humid areas, it became unstable. So instead of a helpful puff of cushiony air, some airbags went full Mike Tyson on your face. Every major car company got dragged into the recall. Honda, Ford, GM, Chrysler, BMW. Basically, if it had wheels and an airbag, it was probably involved. The solution was simple, in theory. Replace the faulty inflators. In practice, this took years and cost billions. Speaking of which, Takata's total bill, roughly $24 billion, give or take a few exploding dashboards. Oh, and they went bankrupt in 2017. Surprise, surprise. In the end, the Takata recall wasn't just the biggest in US history, it became the world's most expensive lesson in how not to airbag. Well, that's it for today's episode. You feeling better about our cars? No? Too bad you're stuck with it. So do me a favor, watch more of my videos. I would greatly appreciate it. Take care, have a great day.